I started knocking on doors and I really wanted to get into the industrial property side. It was an area that had really always interested me. And every interview I went for, people would go, oh no, you'd be brilliant in commercial. Women are traditionally really good in the commercial industry. And I'm like, don't tell me that I can't go into the industrial market because women aren't meant to do well in that market. I'm thinking, if I want to go into that market, I'll go into that market. So job interview after job interview, everyone kept offering me, position in commercial. Oh, residential would be great for you. I'm like, no, I want to do industrial. So eventually I went for an interview and the guy that was interviewing me, the managing director, said, oh no, we don't really have an industrial market in the South Sydney area. And I'm like, I'll create one. I'll start that whole area. And he's like, you know what, it's pretty hard. You've never worked in property before. I said, I've studied it. I know sales, I'm organised. I know the territory because I've worked for Ritz-Carlton in that territory. I know the clients already. I know the owners because I've dealt with them when they've been booking the hotel. I'm like, I'm already halfway there. So eventually I convinced this guy to give me a job. He basically didn't allow me to speak to anyone for 6 months. So I just spent day in, day out in my car on my own, learning the streets, learning the properties, taking notes, everything that I'd learnt in working for Ritz-Carlton in terms of processes, I brought into the property market, which was amazing because everyone was a bit scattered. No one had really fabulous systems. So this for me was like, I knew every single street, every single owner, every single property. So by the time he let me on the phone, when I was speaking to owners, yes, I was young, yes, I was good looking, okay, talk myself up a bit. But you know what, a woman in this industry wasn't, it wasn't normal. There was no women down in the South Sydney market. There was no women in the industrial market, in warehouses, in sheds. They used to call it shed shifting, it was a bloke's thing. So by the time I got to open my mouth, I was exceptionally knowledgeable in this area. So I really knew my stuff. So, people at first, other agents would go, oh, I understand why you're giving that job to Kristen. She's got great legs. It'd be like, you know what, guys, that's just so pathetic. No, they're giving me the job because I know my stuff and I know what property. Yes, they might remember me more because I was a woman in that area, but these are large businesses. These are, DHL, Toll. They're not going to deal with me just because I'm a woman. So anyway, ended up absolutely loving this industrial property market. The best time was there was a massive warehouse and it was up for lease. So every single agent in the South Sydney area were down there. And this guy came over and he was one of my competition. And I'm wearing a skirt and a really nice suit, one of my Italian ones that I just arrived back from Italy. It was a lot of brown. Brown was in back then. One of my colleagues nicknamed me Brown Trout because I had so many brown suits. Anyway, another male-dominated industry that I'd found myself in. And he walks over to me and he goes, are you serving tea today? And because the function was catered for. I said, yes, I am. I said, how do you like it? And he went like this, and I went over and made him a cup of tea, and I gave it back to him. And I said, you know what? I've come from the foreign exchange industry. I said, there were another 100 assholes like you. I said, so give me your best shot. I said, I would have heard it all. Anyway, from that day onwards, I think I sort of gained everyone's respect. I wasn't going to be pushed around, but again, I was one of those women like to have the respect. My boss at the time was quite a bit older than me. And he turned to me and he said, look, I'd suggest not wearing a skirt to work. Probably pants is a little bit more appropriate. I just come from Ritz-Carlton hotels where you're only allowed to wear skirts. They weren't even allowed to wear pants back then. I mean, how antiquated is that? Now I'm going into an industry where, and I sort of turned around and went, like, why? It wasn't like it was a short skirt, it was very appropriate. It's like, oh, I just think pants is more appropriate. And I'm like, no, I'm a woman. If I want to wear a skirt, I'll wear a skirt. So he soon sort of learned that, I wasn't going to be told what to do. But I also was very, very mindful. I'd never wear strappy tops to work. I'd always be well covered. And I always made sure that, I was being a woman in a male-dominated industry, but I never saw myself as any different to them. And I think that's why I find it very hard and confusing, this Me Too movement. But anyway, that's a whole other episode that we'll get into at another day. So Super, super successful. Yes, I was, because I worked my ass off. And I used to get in again super early to work, and I'd like to leave early. I don't function well at night. I'm definitely a morning person. And I soon found myself, you know, doing it really, really well. I worked for Chesterton International was the company. Anyway, I ended up becoming a director there and really owned that South Sydney market. I met my husband, Johnny from the Gong.